Hey guys, and welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything. My name is Pete, and welcome back to another edition this week of Legacy Reviews. This is episode 23 of Legacy Reviews. This week, I'm just going to let you guys know ahead of time, I'm a little bit of a rush. There's been a lot going on this week, so this is probably going to be a little bit shorter of a review, so maybe that excites some of you, but we're going to go quick through these 3 episodes. I'm going to give my thoughts as best as I can, as thoroughly as I can for you. With that being said, we're going to kick off with Duel Monsters Episode 23, Strongest, Magnificent, Blue Eyes, Ultimate Dragon. Let's get started. So we pick up in episode 23 of Duel Monsters, and this is the second part of the duel between Yugi and Kaiba, which I guess I was under the impression that this was only going to be a 2-part episode. It seems that it is going to be a 3-part duel, which makes sense. I mean, I love when these two are on screen. This is only the second time that they're dueling each other, but they've had some experiences before when Yugi was going against the mercenaries, and they kind of had like a telepathic connection because the mercenary was using Kaiba's mercenaries, and they kind of had like a telepathic connection because the mercenary was using Kaiba's deck, the player killer. But it's nice to see them on screen. I mean, I feel like Kaiba is just him, Pegasus, even Yugi to a degree. It's another level when they're on screen and they're really in their dueling prowess, especially Kaiba and Pegasus so far through the first 23 episodes, and I really enjoy that. So they give us a little recap at the beginning of the episode of what happened last time, and basically is kind of more of the same in the sense that we're using combo attacks. We have, Kaiba using his kind of Ancient Lamp Genie combo that kind of reflected back Yugi's attack last episode, and we saw it wipe out his dragon. It almost acted in a way of like a Mirror Force kind of thing, and that's what we're seeing here in this episode. But Kaiba's ultimate goal, which Yugi finds out pretty quickly in the episode, he's a smart guy, the other Yugi style over there, he knows what the hell he's doing, and he figures out that Kaiba wants to fuse all 3 of his Blue Eyes White Dragons. So he already had one hand, he needed to draw 2 more here, and a polymerization card. Of course, he did that by the end of the episode. We'll get more to that here. So Yugi's really first kind of thing is to defeat the Ancient Lamp Genie combo, right? Like, you have to get through that to be able to kind of progress forward in this duel, and that ends up being kind of Yugi's, I wouldn't even say motivation, but his kind of strategy to get through this early part of the duel. So Yugi's first way of kind of dealing with it is after he has Swords of Revealing Light destroyed by Kaiba's effect, I believe, on the Genie. He talks about, hey, that was a nice card, that could have been a troublesome card, that's gone. Now Yugi uses Mystic Box, and I believe we've seen this card once before so far in the show. You could correct me if I'm wrong down below. And it's basically like a magician type card, right? Like you put the assistant in the box, and then, will it hurt her or kill her, or is there a way to reveal that she'll be okay? And that's exactly what it does here. He ends up putting, in combination with his other spell card, Eye of Truth, which we'll get to that in a second, he putting the Ancient Lamp in the box, is able to destroy that. I guess I was under the impression that Mystic Box only destroyed monsters, but I guess it could destroy spell cards in this case as well. Destroys that, and then he reveals the other side of the box, the perfectly okay, safe side of the box, where he put Dark Magician, Black Magician in there, and it's able to destroy the Genie. But he was able to also combat that with Eye of Truth, which is a card I don't think we've seen so far in the show, and that reveals Kaiba's entire hand. You could see that on the field. Yuki could see it, anyone watching it, and that really infuriated Kaiba. That was something that he took extremely personally, and you could see that in the anger just manifested on his face, the growling kind of tension that he had, and I thought that was pretty interesting. We see emotion from Kaiba all the time, but that, I guess he reveals, when you reveal the cards there, I guess he's seeing that as something sacred in his strategy and just disrespectful that you could reveal his hand, and felt more of a little personal shot there by Yugi. But we have also Bandit Keith. Remember, we have our normal gang watching on, Jinochi and Honda and Anzu and Bakura all there. But then Bandit Keith now is moved into like the tower of the castle, and he's on Kaiba's side. So I guess we're under the impression there that he can see Kaiba's cards, right? I don't think that's just the players in the game there. That at the vantage point that he's at, he could see Kaiba's cards even before they were revealed by the Eye of Truth. So the Ancient Lamp is destroyed, and that knocks out the combo of the Genie, and that was the first step that Yugi needed to make progress here in this duel, but he ends up walking into another trap. There was also a little cool kind of animation thing that happened that we don't see a lot in Duel Monsters. I feel like we see that a lot in Sevens, which is the current anime that I'm watching right now. But we don't see that enough, I think, in Duel Monsters, where the monsters are interactive. And so when Black Magician, Dark Magician gets summoned, he kind of does like, a little, he kind of does, like, you know, a little wag of his finger that hey, Kaiba, that kind of tactic is not going to work, and he's able to wipe out the genie. So I like those little touches there. But that opens the door for the next combo attack, and so Kaiba summons the Dark Clown on the field. He used that before, I believe, in their first duel, and then he puts another card, he says, in the stub stage, right? So you knew that was going to be something. It ends up being Crush Card Virus, and this card it's got to be broken, right? Because he puts the Dark Clown in, I believe, defense position, so it has like 1,500 defense points, and so he goes, you know, Yugi, your only possibility here is to attack. And so Yugi switches out his main monsters. He takes off Black Magician off the field. He puts Gaia the Fierce Knight, goes to make the attack, and you knew it was going to end up in some kind of trap. And so, you know, Crush Card Virus comes on the field, and this card basically eliminates Gaia the Fierce Knight and Black Magician. They're both gone, even though Black Magician was back in Yugi's hand. And then it prevents him from using any 100 attack. He is not allowed to summon it anymore. It would be instantly destroyed if he did. And, I mean, you guys could tell me down below, like, is this card still used today? I feel like this is a pretty broken card, right? Like, it's extremely powerful that it affected his entire deck, and it limits summoning a monster over 1,500 attack. I mean, that is... It feels very OP with a kind of card like that. So you guys can let me know down below. But that ends up being Kaiba's next hurdle that Yugi has to overcome, besides knowing that Kaiba's going for fusing the 3, you know, blue eyes. How are we going to get over this issue? And that becomes, you know, our Yugi's motive to go forward. But you knew he was going to get over that, because if he gets over that, we have to get to Kaiba fusing the 3 dragons. Kaiba also has some good lines in this episode, as he always does every time he is either dueling or just on screen. And a couple of them he says is, he said that this duel is gonna turn Yugi's blood to ice in his veins. So I thought that was a kind of a cool line there of a shot throwing back and forth. And then another one he said, and I guess this is more peering into his character, right? We know Yugi and them can maybe theorize, but they don't know right now. But we know Kaiba challenged him to this duel because he has to go against Pegasus, and to do that, he has to defeat Yugi because Mokuba's soul is on the line. Mokuba basically got carded very much, right? Trapped in Millennium Eye, whatever it is. Pegasus took Mokuba's soul, much like he did to Yugi's grandpa. And so that is Kaiba's motivations here, and we know that as the audience. And so he talked about not only that, but he talked about personally that he's kind of had this insustainable hunger, this drive that he's had in him ever since Yugi defeated him way back in episode 1. He's wanted to go against Yugi again and defeat him. And I think those little lines there, I like that it peers into his character. So, you know, now, can we defeat Crush Card Virus, right? That's the main thing here. And so Yugi, he monster in defense position. Kaiba summons Battle Ox, even though he had previously mentioned that he was just going to pass the turns off until, you know, he draws the 3 blue eyes and polymerization. He ends up drawing Battle Ox, which works to Kaiba's advantage in that moment, right? Because he could keep kind of dwindling down Yugi's life points if he plays anything in attack position, and if he plays in defense position, he's just wiping out his deck over and over. But he also had a trick up his sleeve if Yugi was able to actually defeat Battle Ox. And so this is me, I guess, understanding the game a little bit more as I watch it. I saw that he had the horn in his hand, right? Because we could peer into Yugi's deck, and that's going to add 700 attack. It just depends on whatever monster he's going to equip it to. So once Silver Fang is defeated, I'm like, well, he's got to pull the horn out, because if he can't summon a monster that is over 1,500 attack, I'm like, well, he's got to equip it or some kind of spell or effect. If he can attach that to the monster, then technically he didn't summon a monster with 1,500 spinning in my head. So I guess I'm getting used to more of the game as I watch more and more of Yugi and of Yu-Gi-Oh! In general. And that's exactly what he ends up doing. So Yugi summons, I think it's Griffor, something like that in pronunciation, and he puts the Horn of the Unicorn on it, and he's actually able to defeat Battle Ox and shave the 200 life points off of Kaiba. However, Kaiba had a backup plan there, right? So he drew another blue eyes, so now he had 3 blue eyes in his hand, but he also had a way to use a spell card that he already had in his hand that he knew he was going to be able to add 300 life points. So he had the Gift of the Mystical Elf. He adds back 300 life points, and the idea there was he wanted to force Yugi to put a monster in attack position, because now he can get more at Yugi's life points. So it ended up working out that, hey, if Yugi keeps wanting to stall, I'll wait for that. If Yugi actually can figure out how to get over my Battle Ox here, that means his monster will be how to get over my battle ox here, that means his monster will be stuck in attack position, and now I can get some of my life points back, and then get my 3 blue eyes on the field, and hopefully fuse them together with polymerization. So it was a brilliant strategy by Kaiba. So Kaiba puts one of his blue eyes on the field, he knocks out Yugi's monster, and knocks his life points from 1500 to 400, and now Yugi is really in trouble. He's on the defensive. He gets polymerization, he's about to summon it, and he summons all 3 blue eyes, and he fuses them together, and that is the moment, right? We've been waiting kind of for the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. We knew it was coming. I remember hearing a little bit about this card, and that's what gets fused on the field. And Kaiba has another great line where he goes, "Defeat was my cross to bear, now I pass it to you." And that is the situation we leave Yugi in. He said he's not going to give up, he's going to fight to the end. How is he going to be able to combat Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon? Now, that's what we'll pick up in the third and final part of this duel. So guys, let me know all your thoughts on Duel Monsters episode 23 down below, the second part of Yugi Kaiba. I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to switch over to GX episode 23, so I'll be right back. Alright guys, welcome back to the GX side of the review. This is episode 23 of GX Demotivation Moki Duel. I mean, this, you know what, just when the last 2 episodes were getting a little bit normal in this show, and I felt like we were kind of going somewhere. We take a detour this week that by the end ends up not being as bad of an episode as it started out to be. But I mean, like what is going on in GX? I mean, like, I feel like I'm saying this every other week. It's just, I felt like I was legitimately high when I was watching like 2/3 of this episode. When I was watching like 2/3 of this episode, like, just a strange episode, like a lot of these episodes are. So the episode kicks off with basically Sho giving a recap of what happened between Misawa and Judai, and how Judai now is the school representative that's going to go against the Duel Academy North. And then it picks up with saying that, yeah, and pretty much everyone was happy or interested in it except one person, that was Instructor Kronos. And he goes to like some weird underground bunker that's disguised in a chicken coop, and he's attacked by chickens, and then there's a student that is like quote-unquote imprisoned there, but it's for his own good, and I guess he's also okay with it. He kind of has like a private like island to himself because he affects other students, and we'll get to that later. And that was the ultimate secret weapon of Kronos to try to go against Judai. And should he take other cards out? What's going to be the way to kind of improve his deck to meet up on the duel of being the duel representative for the entire academy? It's a big deal. It's an honor. But as he says, he's not dueling for anyone else. He's only dueling for himself. And so Misawa and Oscar there, and Sho and Hayato, and they're all suggesting kind of their ace cards or cards that mean a lot to them, that they want to put in Judai's deck. And he's a little bit not Judai-esque, but I can understand why he has a lot of stress and tension, and I think he's hiding behind the fact that, yeah, he wants to do this for fun, and I agree with that, but I think he's legitimately stressed out of this upcoming duel because he understands the responsibility. And so he tells all of them to shut up, and he runs away, and he thinks he's going to his secret place, which I guess is on like the roof of the Duel Academy, but the joke is everybody knows about it, including Instructor Kronos. And he meets a student who's already up there that seems very lackadaisical, and he's just kind of chilling. He almost looks like the man is smoking a joint up there. I mean, he's just so chilling, high on life up there. And so I think the guy's name is like Moki or whatever. You could correct me on the pronunciation down below. For the purposes of this review, I might just call him the Moki Man, just because it sounds good. But yeah, he's up there. He challenges Judai to a duel, and the interesting part of this character is that he's the first character besides Judai that we've met in the show that has a connection with the duel spirits, because Judai realizes right away he can see Wing Karibo right next to Judai when he was talking to him before he realized anyone else was up there. He was talking to Wing Karibo, and this character is interested in Judai because he seems to have a connection to duel spirits, and he explains that later, that he was interested in taking this duel because he had a premonition before, I guess, Instructor Kronos went to get him, that this person, meaning Judai, could actually be someone with a connection to duel spirits, and he wanted to kind of explore someone with a similar power. And he has this connection with his monsters, with his mostly fairy-type monsters that we saw, where it kind of demotivates, as the episode title would describe, the opponent that he is normally going against, and kind of takes like all the fight out of them. The monsters, the dueling style, his voice, whatever his connection is to his kind of fairy type monsters, it takes away the motivation of the duelist, and so he became extremely powerful. He was, Instructor Kronos described, like #1 in the school about 3 years ago, and he was wearing an obelisk blue jacket, sort of. I mean, he kind of had the jacket like draped around him, almost like he would, lackadaisical kind of surfer guy. But then he was put away on this island because they discovered quickly that he had this power, and a power that was growing, that was not making it kind of fair for everyone else at the school, because they were not only losing the duels, they lost motivation to duel, and then would leave the island. So if you had him keep dueling everyone in the academy, there would be no one left in the academy but him. So that's why he's off on some kind of secret island. That's why when Instructor Kronos gets here, he's wearing some weird jetpack space astronaut suit that then gets broken later. So it's just, I mean, what is this show? And so everyone in the background, Hayato, Masawa, Sho, Asuka, they all find him on the roof. They were really interested and like had a love for the Moki Moki and the dueling style of this guy, of Mokio. And eventually they all end up falling asleep. Hayato first, and then the rest of them, Instructor Kronos as well. And the dueling style of this kid basically is he puts weak level fairy monsters on the field. He then attacks with said fairy monsters. When he attacks Judai calls him stupid at one point, that reflects back on his monster. It destroys it, and if he has some kind of other fairy monster or a Moki Moki on the field, because he's able to keep special summoning it when it's destroyed, because he had some other card that recycled it, it powers the attack up from 300 to 3,000. So that's where it can become a pretty formidable card. And yeah, he eventually... And he also has a strategy, too, is as he's losing life points, he has other cards in his deck where he's able to get those life points back. I believe one of them was the Mystical Elf card, which we actually saw this week in Duel Monsters. We just talked about that in the last part of this review, so it was interesting to see it come back in the same episode number here in GX. And that's kind of the kid's dueling style, so it kind of goes back and forth. Judai is sort of getting affected by the end, but not much, because, of course, he has the power to strive through. Is that his connection to dueling spirits? Probably. Is also his love for dueling, suit of being the best? Also that probably as well. So he's able to push through. Everyone else is passed out besides the two of them. Even when the Moki Moki King, when 3 Moki Mokis are fused together, and it's like this gigantic thing over the entire building, was an interesting sight, but it ended up being kind of the same recycled style over and over. Judai looks like he has his back against the ropes, and then he's able to summon Bubble Man. He uses a couple spell cards in combination with that, and when he does that, he attacks with Bubble Man, which obviously he would have less attack than the powered up 3 Moki Mokis that were on the field. He takes a couple of the Moki Mokis, and then the third one, he switches positions of the two, and so now he had the Moki Moki on his field, the Bubble Man was on Mokio's field. When he attacks, that attack gets reflected back at the Moki Moki Man at Mokio, and he is defeated, and that wraps it up. So, yeah, there's not a ton to talk about here. Everyone's still passed out by the end, including Mokio, who had the Moki Moki Man. Are we going to see this character again? I'd be cool if we never did. If we do, I guess it's interesting just because he has a connection to dual spirits. But yeah, just one of these weird GX episodes. Yeah, there's not much more to say about this in episode 23. So guys, let me know your thoughts down below. If there's anything else you want to talk about this episode that I didn't go over in this review, I would gladly talk to you down below. Maybe after I drink a little bit to talk about it. So we're going to switch over to 5Ds, episode 23, to finish out this review. So I'll be right back. Alright guys, so we're back for the final part of this week's Legacy review. This is episode 23 of 5Ds, the final game, Heart Hidden Under the Mask. And so that basically is, it's all about Aki. It's all about, hey, this is the finals of the Fortune Cup. We're building up to face the King, to face Jack Atlas. That is where we're going. That's where we knew all of this was going. And when this tournament started off and all the characters were pretty much introduced, that's where we knew all of this was going. And when this tournament started off and all the characters were pretty much introduced, you knew it had to end up in Aki Yusei. where I think it will eventually end up in Yusei Jack, right? Even that is what Godwin expressed, that he wants that. Even Jack thinks that Yusei will meet him in the finals and that Aki's a dangerous opponent, but Yusei is not going to lose. Really, the only people that believe Aki could win are Aki and that divine guy is part of the Arcadia movement. So yeah, great episode. Music is fantastic as always. It's going to be a two-parter, I would imagine, at the least. Well, we know it's definitely a two-parter at the least, and I would imagine it probably is only 2 parts. But yeah, we start off the episode. Once again, very much like GX, there's a lot of synergy here in our 3 episodes here in episode 23, with a little bit of a recap of what Aki did last time to Kono, and how her signer kind of power came out, and how the crowd is just testing her and saying she's a witch. Remember, she had the hairpiece kind of come out, which in this episode, the Divine kind of says that hairpiece keeps in her power and she's able to control that. Is that true, or is that just him kind of mind messing with her as a device that he thinks that, he wants to instill in her that, hey, that will control your power in an effort to kind of cap her emotions, but it really does nothing, it's just a hairpiece? Or is it an actual instrument of keeping her power in check? I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out that down below. But Godwin, the assistant, they know she's a signer. We kind of have our signers lined up here, right? It seems like we need 5 signers. So we got Yusei, we got Jack, we got Aki, and we got Luca. Those are our 4 so far of the signers. Who's the 5th? I don't think we've been introduced to that so far. And so Aki and Yusei kind of pass each other in the hallway. They see each other, and they kind of have a tiny conversation. But really, I think that moment is more about Luca and Aki, and it's about Yusei noticing it there, because Luca and Aki have a look to each other of, they recognize that they're both signers, that they both have the detestable mark, right? That is what Aki describes as. That's what she described it as the first time when she was under the mask and saw Yusei. And I think she hates him for it. I think she's been a little bit brainwashed by the Arcadia movement. We have, 2 secret societies here. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But they have some kind of connection where Aki seemed a little bit emotional when she saw Luca, when she actually had more of anger toward Yusei. So is it maybe because, Luca is a girl? Is it maybe because Luca is a child, more of a younger kid, so she kind of, she can't hate her as much? She has kind of a little bit of empathy towards her? Maybe. But I thought it was a fascinating scene when that comes down. And he tries to summon Aki to, Godwin wants to talk to Aki right before. Probably was going to offer her some kind of deal, mess with her head. And the Arcadia movement steps right in and denies the request. And that is the first time that we saw someone in this show that actually was able to halt Godwin and his people there at Iliaster. And so, hey, the power of secret societies, right? And even Godwin's assistant says, they're kind of like a lame, basically, secret society. It's them being a little bit jealous, I guess, of like, my secret society is better than yours, and that's kind of how it felt. But I think that was an important moment there, because it shows the power that Arcadia is apparently a natural enemy of Iliaster. They, Godwin views it as Iliaster is doing the right thing for the planet, is saving them from this evil that is coming, and they see it, agree with Arcadia's movement at this point, where the Crimson Dragon is a danger to the planet. They called it a phony secret organization, but it is a danger to the planet, and they are in direct competition of trying to stop that. So that's going to be a fascinating storyline with Yusei caught in the middle, Yusei and his friends, as the show kind of builds and builds here after, even when we face Jack Atlas. But they kept saying, Lua and Luca kept saying that, the witch is scary. The crowd is saying the witch is scary. She actually, has that real world power of affecting people outside the duel. It's literally hurting them. And we see the crowd kind of be affected by that in the episode, where they're literally moving their seats because they don't want the blowback of the actual attacks. And I just like seeing that more and more. And to touch as a final point to the Luca and Aki moment is when they looked at each other, Luca says that it feels like a point to the Luca and Aki moment is when they looked at each other, Luca says that it feels like I could see her soul because of the mark. So their connection going forward could be vastly important. As Yusei pointed out, the connection of all these signers. They're all drawn together for a reason, and it's both sides, Arcadia and Godwin's people, are using each and every one of them. And so Yusei, as expected, quickly realizes that. And then we get a scene where it's almost like very Dragon Ball-like, where Aki is kind of in a back-to tank, right? Or some Star Wars kind of stuff going on where she seems to be healing. Is that actually helping her? Is it just kind of to get her in that mindset that she's been told all of these lies, so she has to kind of go through the motions and she believes it's helping her? That remains to be seen. I guess we'll have to see more of that going forward, but she's being talked to by the divine guy, and he's saying, like, have your power out here to go outside of the mask. There's a risk here that these people can turn you on the, kind of these evil words that they're going to be telling you, and then Aki's like, almost brainwashed, like, that she's like, yeah, they're nonsensical words, they're not going to affect me, I understand the mission. And he's like, Aki, you're very smart, you understand what we're trying to do here. We're trying to stop Iliaster, we're trying to stop the Crimson Dragon. So Aki, unlike Yusei, is fully aware of Iliaster, you would imagine. Is that whole situation, at least from Arcadia's brainwashing and perspective, has been explained to her. Yusei's still on the outside looking in, because at the moment, we know that the only other person that is in touch with that information is Jack Atlas. And they say, the Divine says that, hey, we're given God-given abilities here. We think that, our movement, our idea here is right, and that Yusei could actually be part of Iliaster. Now, do they to kind of further give her motivation here? She's almost, not even almost, she is their weapon in this war, and you can see by the way they treat her, and there's a lot of parallels there between how that secret society treats Aki as the weapon and kind of the figurehead and the person to go out in front, their champion, and very much how Iliaster and Godwin treats Jack, right? So there's very much two parallels between those characters. Now, will those two characters ever meet and duel against each other? I hope so. I don't think it's going to be here in this tournament, because I think Yusei is going to win. It clearly has been shown that many of the characters think Yusei is going to win, and that just makes the most sense given that he's the protagonist of the show, and this is how these Yu-Gi-Oh! Shonens go, right? But also, it fits plot-wise, because as Godwin suggested here, he wants the red Arcfiend Dragon and Yusei Stardust Dragon to kind of collide again, because that created the power for the momentum machine. Collide again because that created the power for the momentum machine that we saw back on episode 4 or 5. I think it was 5, where it brought out the Crimson Dragon for a brief time. He wants to get back to that moment, and therefore he needs Yusei to win. He's using Aki as a weapon. He even says that, hey, Arcadia thinks they're giving the one-up on us, basically, but actually we could use their motivations and Aki to our advantage, because it will draw the signer powers out of Yusei. He will probably win, and ultimately that will confirm to us that he is 100% a definite signer. So there's a lot of moving parts here of both of these secret societies, of the people caught in, and obviously Yusei in the middle of all of that. But also, it's just the way, too, that the Divine, and I touch on this just a little bit here, treats her like a weapon, but also like a doll, right? He's taking that one loose hair kind of off of her. He's making sure she's perfect. Lie is perfectly fixed on. It is a little bit creepy in kind of the relationship they have and what he is cultivating in Aki. And then we cut to the crowd. They hate the witch. They're actually going for the satellite garbage in Yusei, as they say. And I think Himuro makes an interesting point where, Grandpa is like, it's horrible, all these things that are saying, this is going to be a heartbreaking duel, it's going to be a terrifying duel. And Himuro says, people are scared of her, but it's like watching a car wreck, right? Like, you can't look away. And they, at the end of the day, they hate her, they hate Aki, and they want to see her slaughtered. And that's just what human beings do. I mean, even going back to the beginning of human history, going back to gladiatorial days in the Roman Empire, like, that's what we live for. Even today in modern age, it's a little better, right? But how popular are combat sports and UFC and bare knuckle boxing and all these kind of things going on? We love to watch people fight and get hurt and get bloody. It's in human nature, right? It's horrible, but it is part of a lot of people. So before we get into the duel, which is the second half part of this episode, I just want to make one comment that I just want to get your guys' opinions on. It definitely looked like the animation in this episode was different than the previous episode. So let me know down below if I'm crazy there, because it looked a little bit different. And one thing, at least on Crunchyroll, if you're watching this, that was aggravating me to no end was the subtitles were like a second half delayed from the actual speech, which was really throwing me off throughout the episode. So that was a comment that I want to know if you guys... I wanted to make, because I want to know if you guys experienced something similar, and do you notice that the animation looks a little bit different, or is that just me? Let me know down below. But as we get into the actual duel, there's not a ton to talk about, right? Like, Aki, as the announcer points out, goes for the similar strategy of kind of summoning some kind of plant token on the opponent's side of the field, in this case, obviously being Yusei. Wall of Ivy comes out. There's a couple combination moves that Aki ends up doing, and ends up getting 4 plant tokens on Yusei's side of the field. Uses Continuous Trap, Cursed Ivy. Like, there's all of these things that Aki is doing. And really all that Yusei does is kind of use Speed Warrior. It powers up to its normal 1800. And it doesn't really do much, right? Like, he summons a couple other monsters here, but he's the one taking the brunt of the attack in this. And, of course, as we know, he actually is taking real-life pain and damage. And we see that actually be shown in terms of that the ivy is wrapping up one arm and the both legs and then the torso of the body and almost ripping him apart, almost like a medieval torture device, like the rack. Like, it is incredibly painful what Aki is doing. So even his turret warrior really does nothing. The shield warrior that he summons in defense position at the end of this, like, every effort that Yusei has so far made in this duel has been all for naught, because Aki at the end of this is able to end up attacking, deal 300 points of damage, I guess, per attack. She sets it up that it's able to attack 4 times, because it can attack for every plant token on Yusei's side of the field, and every time one of those tokens is destroyed, it takes also 300 damage. So he's taking 600 damage per token being destroyed after the 100 points of damage that he took earlier. So he ends up going all the way down to about 1500 attack by the end of the episode. He's in extreme actual physical pain, and you could see on his face, and he says the key line, right? We had the little repeat there at the beginning of the episode that dealt back to last episode, that he feels rejection and anger are the 2 emotions he gets out of Aki's dueling style, but there was something else that was below the surface on there, and you see the Divine wants her to use her loneliness and her pain, right? Everyone, Godwin, the Divine, everyone's interested in Aki being hurt here, but Yusei notices a very terrifying thing that I thought Aki would be aware of, but she apparently actually isn't, is that she actually enjoys the destruction of what is going on. She enjoys the pain that she's inflicting, and I expected her, with the smile that she had on, the sinister smile, that she would realize that. She apparently did not, because she asks it in a question form, and I think that is going to be the way in to her heart that Yusei talked about, that he can get to her in next episode, and kind of conquering that kind of terrifying and nasty kind of feeling that she has, that she enjoys hurting people, and that maybe he can get to her, that she's actually being used as a weapon. So guys, a great episode, a lot of backstory once again on Aki. So let me know what you thought of episode 23 of 5Ds down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. With that being said, that wraps up our Legacy review here, guys. Episode 23 was this week. Yeah, if you could support this, like the video here, if you've been here this long, the 34 minutes, I said that this was going to be a quick one, and actually for me, this is decently quick, but we had a lot to talk about in 5Ds, so I'm glad that you stuck around. I appreciate you sticking around. Stay more to the channel. Every Wednesday night about 8:30, 9 o'clock Eastern, we do a Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast called 7's Up, which talks about the current Yu-Gi-Oh! Going on, which is Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's. So if that interests you, please come check that out. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of laughs. We would enjoy you stopping by. And Legacy reviews, if you enjoyed this segment, they come out every single Thursday here on the channel, here on Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and Dylan has a whole bunch of other videos going on as well, as always, so he would love if you stuck around. Guys, I will talk to you down below. I love you all, and I will talk to you next week, and until next time, thanks for watching.